good morning. This is Rosemary Camas, your host. Welcome to Take Control of Your Future. This morning, my guest is Dawkins Development Group, Daniel Dawkins, and his partner, Tyler Architecture and Planning. Jacqueline Tyler will be represented as well. Their mission, Tyler Architecture and Planning and Dawkins Development Group, have teamed up to provide budget-friendly design and construction for the average person. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing it right, Rosemary. How you doing?
Welcome to the show. Thank you. I'm so proud to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, as a contractor, I know you are very experienced and you are very prepared to help anybody in any transition.
Exactly.
So what would be your the most thing that you would recommend actually in maintaining your home? Why don't we start with that and then go into how they might prepare to be able to age in place?
Hey, how you doing? I'm Daniel with Dawkins Development Group. When it comes to aging and setting your home in the process, everything, have, different, variations of, basic household upkeeping. A lot of the maintenance that I come across, a lot of times is things that with homeowners, overlook. It can, whether we're talking about a roof, we're talking about, doors that, may be falling and, things of that nature. It may be small holes that kids may have start penetrating in the walls eventually, start getting larger and things of that nature. So if we want to get into the, to the exterior portion of it, a lot of it, of the wood rot, a lot of times determined, and it comes from when gutters are, overly saturated with leaves. And sometime in the wintertime, we have a lot of snow and ice that may sit on a roof, and we never get up there and get a chance to actually clean it off. So things like that is what, causes, water damage inside the roof, and eventually you can even have your roof that need to be replaced.
That is a big item, roof. And I know as a real estate agent, I'm a real estate agent. I hang my license with the Berkshire Hathaway in Scarsdale. And as a listing agent, I'll always have recommend that the seller do a pre-listing inspection so that there are no surprises when a buyer comes in and has an inspection done, which is really the course of one of the first things a buyer will do before they sign a contract. And sometimes they will do it just for their own information if it's not a contingency on the purchase of the home. But one of the things that is basically the biggest question that's always asked is, how old is the roof? I know that that's a question that sometimes can be answered and sometimes can't be. If somebody who is just moved into the house and they don't know how old the roof is. But if they maintain it well, how long can a roof last? And what are the earmarks of taking care of a roof?
Well, that's a really good question. It's kind of hard to tell how old the roof is unless a roof is actually really, really aged. But the things that you can actually look for is hot spots in the roof, because the manufacturer's shingle warranty of a roof, can go anywhere between 20 to 35 years. A lot of the architectural shingles, the warranty on those is about, 25 to 35 years on a lot of the newer shingles. But, on labor warranty, depending upon the contractor that installed it, they may give you a 10-year, labor warranty on the roof. So what you want to do is when you outside looking at your home, look for hot spots. Look at areas where you see little lumps and, different parts of the roof that's actually raising itself up. And then that can determine whether or not the roof can be old or it's something that can be repaired before water and stuff start actually, creeping in. Because what happens is with nails have the tendency to back itself out over the years with heat expansion and contracting and things of that nature. So what happens is when you stand at your roof, just step on the back and just actually look at the hot spots and have, contractor, someone come in and knock those hot spots down. Sometimes you might have to put a little tar, because what's going to happen is when the wintertime comes and the snow and the ice, starts sitting up on the roof, it can get up under the bottom of the shingle, and then eventually you can start getting water damage. And once the plywood actually start getting saturated and getting soft, then the roof starts to sag a little bit, and that's when you start getting your internal, leaks and stuff like that.
Can that be fixed just in that one spot in those areas? So you don't have to replace the whole roof?
You don't. It can be fixed in one spot. In the way that the shingles are actually designed, you can actually replace. I would always recommend, if you are going to do a roof repair, always do a minimum of at least one square, which is a 10 by 10, area, which is 100 square feet. So at least you're not just fixing that one area, but you're fixing the shingles that's actually around it as well.
Right. Now do you do roofs as well in your contracting work?
I do.
That is, so you're one-stop shopping.
Yeah, we do complete, home gut renovations. We service the community. We even also do a lot of small jobs, which is handyman, services as well. Because, you get some contractors who focus mainly on a re-roof or a complete gut renovation. But at the same time, our handyman services is mainly put in place just for those areas where we may have to do a roof repair, or we may have to, change out a cabinet or repair a door that, may be swinging for, a couple of years, and then eventually it starts pulling itself off the hinges. And you want to catch that at an early stage so you don't eventually have to replace the frame itself.
Well, so that's a door that may stick or come off the hinge, or what are some of those?
Exactly. A lot of times I get clients who call me out and say their doors are not closing or the locks isn't catching, and then you have to go out to do readjustments of, the hinges and the handles, and that's what it comes from. It's just normal wear and tear. After a door swings, it's heavy, and once it, closes a few times, it may shift itself a little bit. So what you want to do is catch that, and sometimes the holes can be stripped. And it's a secret, that homeowners can actually do themselves before it get out of control without hiring a contractor. And, it was an older man, and as I was coming up in the trade that was teaching me carpentry, that showed me the trick, and I still utilize it to this day. So if you ever having a door that's actually falling off the hinge, and before it gets out of control, you can go outside to your yard, you can find like a small tree branch, and you can break off the branch itself, and you can stick it inside the hole of the screw, of the strip screw. So once you stick that piece of wood inside the screw, then you can put the screw back in, and it acts as a filler, and the wood is going to expand, and then you're going to get to take a regular Phillips screwdriver and screw the screw back inside the actual hole, and that's going to save you a lot of money with having a contractor come out. Because what it is, a lot of contractors, it's based on time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, we can't control certain costs, but when you look at what operating cost is, when it takes to, get a guy to come out to a job site and unload tools and tool maintenance and insurance and things of that nature, it can run you a few $100s in a handyman service that can actually cost you maybe 5 minutes of your time if you just knew, little basic household upkeep and, tricks of the trade that can actually save you money in the future.
Well, that's so helpful. Wonderful little helpful hints. We should put a list together, have you back on the show, and we'll discuss that.
Yeah, definitely.
I have to get to a couple of other pieces because we want to stick to what our goal was about aging in place. But just going over a few more maintenance things that you started talking. We've covered roof. We've covered basic household maintenance. Some of the things that you've given. You mentioned to me before we started the show about attics and ventilation. And what would you say would be earmarks to look for, especially like in the summertime?
The reason why attics and ventilation is really, really important, whether it's the summertime or the wintertime, because a lot of times in the summertime, that's the hottest, place in the home. And if you're utilizing the attic space for children, playing, most of my clients, they have that space for children. But what happens is if you don't have the proper ventilation, your attic tends to sweat. And when it sweats, it can't ventilate itself, and eventually you can have mold buildup, which can cause several problems, throughout the house, your health, and things of that nature as well. So the proper ventilation is to make sure you got the proper, roof ventilations, especially if you're going to have a new roof put onto your home. You want to make sure that you have ridge vents, you have soffit vents, and we cut insertions and things like that into the roof so the roof can actually breathe, because the home has, vapors in the wall sections, and is designed in a way so it can breathe, so all the heat throughout the house can actually travel, to the roof to exit itself, so you guys don't have, mold issues build up in the future.
Another wonderful, helpful hint for maintenance, just generally. One other thing you mentioned, too, before the show that I think is worth going over again. Other people have been on the show talking about this, crystal restoration, number one, cleaning maintenance, gutters and leaders, a very big topic. And what would you say are the most important things to maintain in gutters and leaders?
The most important thing to maintaining your gutters, as I mentioned in the beginning, is to make sure that your gutters stay crystal clear of all leaves and all debris. They have several different, gutter guards that you use for your gutters to keep the leaves and everything out. But you want to make sure that the gutters, are clear, because if the water cannot flow properly, what happens is the water tends to fill up the gutters and it starts to run behind the gutters. Once it starts to run behind the gutters, this is a really damaging area that's unforeseen inside the property, because you never know that damage is taking place until the gutters actually start leaning, and the soffit work itself will start rotting itself out. And one of the things that a lot of people, especially here in Westchester County, we know a lot of these homes have underground streams and water that's constantly moving. And there's one thing that it's hard to get away from in Westchester County. Having your gutters properly, serviced and have the proper drainage and direction on your actual leaders itself will keep the water off of your foundation, because the roof calculates a lot of water that's draining every time it rains. And the gutter's whole purpose is designed to keep the water to go into one designated area. But once it comes down that leader, that downspout, you want it to drive away from the property itself and not go on the foundation, because once it starts leaking on the side of the foundation, it causes erosion. The dirt start, creating craters and tunnels. And then once that water makes it down to your basement, then it gets into a foundation issue, which can cause a lot of corrosion in the actual concrete. But then over time, if you have a finished basement, you're going to start smelling mold and mildew, and you might start noticing your floors are buckling. But before you actually catch the problem, you can be $30,000 to $40,000 in a basement renovation that you could have prevented by just buying a flute to go on the end of your gutter that can, may cost you $14, $15. So, you definitely want to pay attention and make sure that your gutters are, properly clear, properly clean, but the water is not running up against the property. And a lot of times when it's raining, we as homeowners, don't really pay attention, to the foundation. We don't pay attention to those things. But when it's not raining, you can always walk around your house as your landscaper is doing your landscaping and cutting your grass. Look at the side of the house, because you always want the dirt to slope away from the property. So if you started noticing that right up against your foundation, the dirt is actually sloping back towards the house, these are things that you let your landscaper know. Say, let them know to, bring in a few bags of dirt, or go to the end of the yard and bring some dirt back up to the property. So that's something that can actually be maintained, because if it's not vegetated and if it's not, grass and things of that nature, eventually, that dirt is going to wash away. And a lot of times up against the foundation itself, it's really not that vegetated, because the water that's running off the building every time it rains is not allowing the grass and everything to grow in those areas. And that's where you get foundation issues. And it might take a year, it might take 2 years, but it's almost like an underground road, and they dig tunnels. And water is one thing that will create those craters. And eventually it can be 10 feet away from the problem, and then you won't understand why your basement is being flooded out. And it can be caused because erosion, coming from the gutters not being properly sealed. All
from gutters and leaders, and that could be absolutely avoided. That is invaluable information. Thank you so much, Daniel. We're going to take a small break here for station identification. I'm Rosemary Camas. This is Take Control of Your Future. We're here every Friday from 9:30 to 10 on 1460 on your AM dial, WVOX, WVOX.com. Our mission is to take control of your future, your home, your estate plan, your health care, finances, and more. We're here this morning with Daniel Dawkins Development Group, and his partner, Tyler Architecture and Planning. Their mission, as we started before to tell you, includes also all the maintenance that Daniel can do, and contracting and helping whatever is needed in your home for maintenance, for construction, focusing on health care is what we're doing this morning. It includes also incorporating spaces on the first floor that we started to talk about, that we wanted to talk about as one of our focuses today, was transitioning the possibility of aging in place. Incorporating spaces on the first floor which can easily transition to a master bedroom in the future if it's ever needed. It's important to consider the number of steps in a home, the width of doorways, the ease of access from one space to another when making any renovations in a home, even if it's your first home. Life, as you know, throws us curveballs. We need to be prepared for those curveballs through design and construction. Daniel, can you give us some points on what you think would be necessary for somebody who doesn't have a home that is say safe for aging in place? How would you do the first steps? Would Jacqueline Tyler Architecture come in and do an architectural design of the first floor, and then you would discuss what needed to be done? And what basically are the things that you would look for, and what would have to be done to create a safe environment for aging in place?
What it is, everything, starts from a design. It's all concept driven. And me and Jacqueline Tyler partnered up here in Westchester County, as well as, the 5 boroughs of New York City, to kind of, bring, different concepts and designs and, work with clients' budgets, in order to design and build according to, what's needed versus, coming to a, client's home and designing a plan. And a lot of times we find that, customers may go out and hire an architect, and the architect, may design a project, but never really discuss budget. And now the project is 100% designed, but then they can't, facilitate the dreams, to turn it into their reality. So, what me and Jacqueline, determined that it's best to make the client, part of the process. Let's get to understand the client's needs, because there's different material selections and there's different things that you can actually use to, to cut costs without actually taking away from the integrity of the overall project. A lot of the newer homes, that's built, today, it's common, builders are putting the master bedroom on the first floor. But if you have an older home and you do have a, client who is elderly and, and they plan on keeping, the home maybe in the family, and things of that nature, these are the things that you want to think about. If you have the space, we can convert, maybe one of the rooms on the first floor into a master bedroom suite. Or if you're looking to do an addition, we can actually incorporate maybe a half bath into a full bath and make that all part of the master bedroom suite itself. It's important for, several different reasons, not only, for the agent, but, you may, have a tragedy, or you may get sick and you can't climb up and down a staircase and you just need that space in your home. And that's why it's really important, as well to, to look at a home that we can actually, either design or build, that can fit those areas itself. But when we think of, design build, we think of, designing it to fit the needs. Every customer and every client is completely different. Depending upon what their needs are, what their health issues are, then we're going to determine whether or not if it's wheelchair accessible, if they need, handicap bars, if they need, any type of railing to get them from the, from the kitchen to the backyard, and whether or not we need to open up the back door so they can actually get out to the deck. These are the different things that, we look at when we talk about aging in place, because that's a specific, task when it comes to the construction industry that sometimes gets missed. And what happens is at the last minute, people take a fall on, on time, and, we have to come in, and then they start calling contractors. But every contractor don't necessarily specialize in handicap conversions and things of that nature. Not saying that they can't do it, as a reputable contractor. There's plenty of contractors out here that can put up handicap bars and stuff like that. But it's more involved in depth when we talk about aging in place. We have to look at the fact of, showering. I do a lot of projects where, clients want to take the tub out because now the parent is elderly and they can't lift in and out of the tub, or, so what we may have to do is pull the tub, and we would turn the floor into one solid mass. And there's waterproofing involved, because if it's a room, on the first floor, and this bathroom is on the second floor, we have to now make sure if the water, comes out of the shower, that it doesn't damage the ceiling. That's going to cause you, future problems in the future. So every project is literally designed custom for the needs of the actual client itself. So what me and Jacqueline does is we come in, we listen to the client's needs, we assess, what needs to happen, and we design and build accordingly to the client as well as the property itself. And then we get, into material selections so we can control the budgets, because some clients, feel like they don't want to, share their budgets because, contractors, somewhat has like a bad reputation of taking advantage and things of that nature. So I understand. I get it. But, if you find you a great contractor and you're willing to share your budgets and you know that they have your best interest, then what happens is we design not to blow the budget, but we actually design according to your budget. So at the end of the day, you can get all the things that you need. At the same time, we can be able to facilitate how it needs to be structured and make sure that things is done properly versus you getting a half job and then you still have to put more financing out of pocket.
Wow, that is really, so everything's individualized. I know Tyler Architecture and Planning, their mission is to really keep people's budgets in mind and to individually make sure that everything is done properly.
Exactly. Licensed
and very, very important. Which actually segues into when many people will benefit, will see the benefit of these improvements, and some may have difficulty coming up with the money to get them done. There are traditional mortgages and loans for home rehabilitation that I know companies that can be obtained, but actually that specifically are geared to the senior community. There is the HECM, which is the home equity conversion mortgage for 62 years of age and older. There is a special home equity conversion mortgage, which can help the homeowner access their equity to finance a project. And I think currently the limit is $440,000. That's what one of my specialists told me. The difference in using the senior mortgage is, of course, there's no monthly payments, whereas a traditional will definitely require some type of monthly payment. So the home equity conversion mortgage is paid back with interest when the home is sold. So in this case, homeowners can enjoy their improvements, their payment, and that payment free. If anybody needs to know the name of a company, we have people on our networking team. You can call me, Rosemary Camas, and I will be happy to refer you to some of our home equity resource people. And you can reach me at 914-329-7889. That's 914-329-7889. Then I'm going to ask you for your contact information, and we'll give Jackie's as well. Some discussion points going back to this that are frequently called on to assist those when they are listing their home and when either their home maintenance has fallen short over the lifetime of their ownership. We started to touch on that. Or construction was completed without the proper channels. In other words, C of O's and that area that many people ask about. You have to be so careful that if people have a mortgage, banks, when they do appraisals, there can be no issues if anybody has done any construction work that required a permit. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
That's really, really important. And what you mentioned about, finding additional financing through different, banks and lenders and things of that nature is really, really important. And I'm glad you touched on that and able to allow, the community to reach out to you to, gather up some of that information. Because I just helped a client the other day that had no clue that she can get funding, for her project. And they have companies out there that, act as a second mortgage where it won't affect your first mortgage. And they do even smaller loans from $10,000 to $25,000 to where the obligation isn't so great. And, I helped the client with this particular company, and within 2 weeks' time, she was able to fund her project, do her exterior project and things of that nature. A lot of things that, you homeowners out there in the community that's listening is homeowners don't know that their homeowner insurance covers a lot of areas of your home after, the policy might have been paid into for a certain amount of time. And these is questions where clients never really ask. And I have had customers, call me out to do renovations. And the first thing I see when I see water damage that was pre-existing on their ceilings, made from an old roof leak, I asked them, well, have you guys consulted with your insurance company? They was like, no. Well, a lot of times they don't know that damage is actually covered into your policy. So, always read your policies and look into, and don't hesitate to call your homeowner's insurance policies because it can actually help out with, your renovation costs.
Thank you, Daniel. We have to actually stop now. I can't believe where this time goes. I have to introduce what our guest is going to be and our topic for next week. We have to get you back on the show. This is incredibly important information. Dan can be Dawkins Development Group and Daniel Dawkins can be reached at 914-835-8900, 835-8900. I'm Rosemary Camas. I'm your host for Take Control of Your Future. Each week we're here with a guest, experts about your home, your estate plan, your health care, finances, and more.